Good evening and welcome to the Mercado La Paloma. I'm Sister Diane Donahue, Sisters of Social Service, and I want to tell you how pleased we are you are all here today. We want to welcome you to the Mercado, and there's a wonderful story in Spanish and English right here on the wall that tells the story of the Mercado. So you are welcome to review it and to take home the story and the wonderful vision that the Mercado is. We have 15 immigrant entrepreneurs here who have started small businesses, and we have 110 people employed here in the Mercado because of these small businesses. This is the story of immigration and immigration reform. Every single one of us came from someplace else. And so it's very evident that what the Wall Street Journal was talking about is very much in place and operating right here. This is immigration in the best use of reform and promise and hope. And so the Nancy Ibrahim, who is the director now of Esperanza Housing, will continue the story of how we build hope with the community. And that's the story of Esperanza. Nancy?
Thank you. We're so excited that the nuns have briefly come off the bus to join us here and to share their journey with us.
Like that, please.
Esperanza Community Housing is a social justice nonprofit founded by our very own Sister Diane Donahue nearly 25 years ago. We have a mission of developing long-term comprehensive community development. And we exercise that mission through interconnected programs focused on affordable housing, economic development, health access, and cultivation of community health leadership, arts, and culture. And here in this building, this is where all of our programs are evident. The Mercado La Paloma is Esperanza's economic development venue, a rare example of community revitalization that didn't displace anybody. In this building, which was a former garment factory and warehouse, we have 15 family small businesses and 7 community-serving nonprofits on the second floor. We are known for our exhilarating cultural exhibitions and programs and some of the finest cuisine in the region. And I think that you've all experienced that. I'd like to thank all of the vendors and restaurants who have been really turning out wonderful food for all of you. These are all folks who have given everything to create these businesses. We developed this project specifically to give hope to our hardworking immigrant families so that they too will find economic opportunity and a voice in this community. Their efforts are essential for developing a local economy, and asserting the rights of these families and others in this community is largely the work of Esperanza Community Housing. So on behalf of Esperanza Community Housing and the entire Mercado La Paloma family, I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight to honor and to celebrate Network and the Nuns on the Bus, and to participate in some small way in their journey and to wish them well. I thank you all very, very much for being here. My joy. Starting with Dupe or Monique? Either one. Okay, I've been given the honor of introducing to you my beloved colleagues, starting with Monique Uriarte, who is a promotora de salud, a community health promoter, and our senior promotora on one of our national model projects called the Healthy Homes Program. Monique Uriarte.
I came from Mexico like 22 years ago. I have 4 wonderful children and 1 spoiled grandson. As a community health promoter, we have the opportunity to work directly with our community in South Los Angeles. I'm part of the team called Healthy Homes. It's a team of 8 warriors, immigrants, women. They're working so hard to serve the community that we are part of.
Yep.
We have the opportunity to see and hear a lot of painful stories behind all the, I'm sorry, this microphone is kind of interesting. Okay. As a promoter, we have the opportunity to hear many stories, painful stories. It's hard to believe how our immigrants community, they need to suffer humiliators, explosions,
Exploitation.
exploitations.
Right.
That's right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very wrong, though.
Sometimes my British accent is so strong and it's hard to understand, right?
Pero no te preocupes, está bien.
Thank you. We are on family. I work as a community health promoter, but I also do data analysis for our programs on Esperanza Community Housing. And I love surveys. And I never miss the opportunity to have a little survey right here. Please raise your hands if you are an immigrant. Can you look around? Thank you. Can you please raise your hands if your ancestors are an immigrant? Thank you. Somebody didn't raise your hands once. I'm assuming if you didn't raise your hand, it's because you are Native American. And thank you so much for sharing your life with all these immigrants people right here. And this is a reflection, this room is a reflection of America. We are America. And now we have the opportunity to stand up and looking and demanding a better immigration reform, better than ever, because we are facing that reality and we have the power to make a change.
Amen. Amen.
Lupe Gonzalez is a first-generation American, born and raised in the community that we serve, and she is a senior promotora from the very first class of Promotores de Salud from 1996. She is now the director of all health programs for Esperanza Community Housing. And I welcome Lupe to come and tell you a bit about her story.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for inviting us and taking us into consideration to speak to you a little bit about our experiences. I just gotta say that I'm very inspired about the movement, about the commitment to making sure that our voice is being heard. Some of our voices are not being heard. So I really wanted to mention about promotoras also. But one of the things that Joanne asked me was, how does immigration impact the health of the community? I have worked and I've lived in this community for many years. And one of the things that happens is they ask me, why do you focus so much on the Latino population? And I said, well, the Latino population for me is, I know it. I was brought up into it. I know the needs, and I also know the challenges it faces. People, when they come over to cross the border, they come with a dream. They want to make sure that they live better, their kids have a better life. But when they come here, their health decreases immensely. What happens? It's the detachment from coming from their own country. It's the stress level. Then they come here and they start, becoming the acculturations, the eating habits, the sedentary lifestyle, because they're moving so quickly because they want to put food on the table. So health is not a priority; it's survival for them. So for us, we want to make sure that we meet people's needs at the moment they need it. And it's very difficult for us. It's a challenge for us. But when we knock on somebody's door or we talk to somebody, we understand that there are those challenges and how do we face them together. So I am like Nancy said, a first generation here, but that was maybe by a mistake. I don't know. I could have been born in Mexico and I could have taken the same route as everybody else. But unfortunately, I was born here. So it's my turn to bring back to the community. I am an example of what Sister Diane and Nancy's ideas of creating leadership in the community can take it to a different level. They gave me the opportunity of a young Latina woman coming from an immigrant family without maybe aspiration to anything, and now the director of a program. So it gives me the opportunity. Thank you. It gives me the opportunity to create opportunity for the other people that are coming the same way. So I have my two kids over there, they're taking their little ice cream, but I also want them to see their mother also advocate in a certain level so that when they start growing up, they also have the same conviction as I do. So I applaud what you're doing. We're an antidote for this poison, which is poverty. So we support your efforts, and whatever we can do over here in the South Lake area, we're willing to do so. Thank you so much.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome Simone Campbell, a member. We are both Sisters of Social Service, and proudly, I have many of our sisters here this evening. And it is a wonderful thing that Simone has been able to create and direct and continue. Last year we were on the bus together for 2 weeks. This year you've got 3 weeks. And it is a wonderful opportunity. And one of my best stories has to do with the Bishop Joe Vasquez in Austin, Texas, who greeted us with a letter of welcome talking about the Texas two-step. And he said, the best part about the Texas two-step is the sisters and the bishops are in the same place, and they're doing the Texas two-step. So that's for you.
Thank you, Diane. It is such a treat to bring the bus to California. I can't even tell you, to bring it home and share it with so many friends here tonight, and to make so many new friends is just a treat beyond belief. So, muchísimas gracias para esta bienvenida. And thank you so very, very much. We from the bus, there have been some questions about how many sisters are on the bus. Today we started out with 11 sisters on the bus. It was a personal best for us on bus day. And we had 2 of our sisters then went off to the San Diego airport to return to Chicago. And 9 of us continued on. We had a stop in Irvine at Congressman John Campbell's office. No relation to me, though we share a last name. And hopefully his politics might shape up to be a little closer to mine. And then we came up here. And it's a delight for us to be here tonight. We've asked 3 of our sisters to share a story, and then we want to share what we can do about comprehensive immigration reform. Take a few questions, have a few comments, and then time just to schmooze, play, see our bus, make sure you get a look at our fabulous bus. So we have a person who leaves us tomorrow. And it's always bittersweet because you get really close together personally on the bus just because of proximity. But also in this case, because we work together at Network. But Sister Marge Clark is a BVM who's from D.C., from Network. She joined us in New Orleans and has traveled with us all through Texas, all through New Mexico and Arizona. And this morning we were down on the Tijuana border and then came up. But tomorrow she heads back to D.C. because things in Congress are heating up, you may have noticed. She's got to get back to lobbying. So we asked Sister Marge to reflect a little bit on her experience. Marge.
Thank you. Simone asked me to say a little something about what I've learned. Well, I think one of the things that I have to say something about is I'm going to talk mostly about what I experienced in the area around Mecca, where we were. I believe that was yesterday. It's a little hard to know. And I want to start with a quote from an elder in that community who is a pastor. And he said, "The people here work very hard, and they are still very poor." We went out to 3 of the trailer camps where the people live. Now, these are mostly families where one or more member of the family works in the fields. Now, we were out there in 110 to 113 degree temperatures for a little while, being off and on the bus. And I reflected on the fact that those people who are working the fields, they're out there for about 8 hours every day, doing very hard physical labor. And the conditions are not particularly good. I asked some questions about that. They don't always have good bathroom facilities. They don't always have appropriate water. They don't have good breaks. And as we looked at the fields, there weren't very many places to find any shade. So when he says they work very hard and they're still very poor, that is very, very true. We met several people. One of the women I wanted to say something about is Celia. Celia is undocumented. She has 2 sons. One is 19, and he is a citizen because he was born here. Her other son is 22. He is not a citizen. He is undocumented. And like so many others of the people we met along the way, Celia is constantly in fear that her son is going to be picked up. One of the things I learned was how absolutely arbitrary the activities of the Border Patrol and ICE are. Lily, who was one of the women we met there, spoke to us about, in her little grouping, there are about 100 trailers in the area that she lives, and she talked about how often they come out and look down the street and see a Border Patrol agent sitting at the end of their road. And he might just sit there and sit there and sit there, and sometimes nothing happens. But other times he sits there, and all of a sudden, someone will be driving along the road. He'll stop the car, he'll take the driver, leave the car there, take the driver immediately to ICE. And the person will be put in a detention center, never gets home, and then is deported. Someone else told us about a service center in one of the other camps that we didn't happen to go to, and how somebody from ICE several people from ICE and Border Patrol hang out in the lot around the service center, and they're just watching for people that they can pick up to deport. And it strikes me that it's very arbitrary, because we also ran into communities where that does not happen, where the officials and the people in the cities have worked together and come to know each other, and they have a very good relationship. And some of what we heard is that about some of the ICE agents and some of the Border Patrol agents who are really very cruel and who are doing things that are not a part of what they are justified to do or that they have even permission to do. And some of that is just very, very hard to deal with. I guess those are a couple of the main things that I wanted to speak to.
Well, now it's one extreme to another. It's hard to believe, but just yesterday evening, 4 new sisters joined us on the bus. And quite frankly, each day seems like at least 3 days of experience because we do 3 events a day, and each event is quite powerful. So their very first event was being down on the border, the Tijuana border at Friendship Park. The second event was a lobby visit at John Campbell's office. And the third event is this glorious gathering of friends. It's wonderful. But we asked Sister Bernadine Cargy, who's hiding over there on the side, Sister Bernadine, if she would share a little bit. She's from Chicago. She's a Cincinnati Dominican. And she joined us late last night on the bus. Well, actually at the University of San Diego, where we were staying the night. And we asked her if she would share a little bit about why she came on the bus. Bernadine.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is just like heaven, the banquet of life in which we all share our gifts and food, of course. As Simone said, I'm from Chicago. Last year when I talked to Simone and she said she was taking the nuns on the bus, and I had just signed up for a retreat during that time, I thought, when I heard the bus was coming this year, I said, I'm getting on that bus. So I was able to work out my time schedule, and I thought, well, you know, really someone has to come to California. I can do that.
Yeah, tough life.
So, thank you. I'm truly delighted to be here for many reasons. I've been practicing immigration law for over 30 years. Or, as I say to my clients, I'm committing acts of hope. You know, some days I feel like the oncologist when I have to give bad news, but I'll say, call me in 6 months. It might change, or something might change in your life. And over my 30 years of legal ministry, I have trusted in God's time. It may not happen today, it may not have happened yesterday when I wanted it to, but in God's time, things come about. I was a new attorney when amnesty happened, and I'm a veteran of the amnesty wars, and I'm still doing amnesty cases. There are still cases that are in the pipeline, are on appeal, and we won an appeal just last August, a year ago. So when I hear of the new law and all these convoluted parts of it, and this step and that step, stop. We know what we need now, and my question is, can we, the U.S. Americans, own our need for immigrants?
Amen. Amen.
You know, why were people brought here in the first place? When my ancestors came 100 years ago, they got off the boat at Ellis Island, got on the train, came to Chicago, and worked in the stockyard. Who feeds us? Immigrants, right? Who digs the soil, who drives the trucks, who does the watering, and who, all y'all wonderful Californians, figured out how to irrigate the desert between the Asian and the Latin immigrants, figured out the whole irrigation system so we can have all the food that we so much enjoy. I'll try not to go on too much longer. Just one thing. On 9/11/2001, we entered the Ice Age, as I call it, when every immigrant was considered illegal, a criminal, and the attitude was throw them out, exclude them. And my prayer and my hope is that we can have a new Ice Age where we are inclusive and compassionate and embrace the diversity that is among us so we can create something new. We know that we need immigrants, and we need to tell Congress and call your congressmen, your senators every day and bug them to death. And call your congressman when this law gets to the House of Representatives. Who knows what's going to come out of the other end of the sausage machine. And please, please, please tell your friends not to go to notaries. Notarial fraud is rampant. People come into my office and they say, oh, I want to sign up for the new law. No new law. Don't give me money, don't give anybody else money. So please, get the word out, get people to the right resources who can help them.
Amen.
And thank you so much.
Amen. Who knew that lawyers could preach so well? Well done, Brian. Well done. And our last story from the bus comes from another lawyer, actually. But Sister Mary Ellen Lacey has been on the bus. She works at Network. She's been on the bus since the beginning. She's our advocate for immigration reform at Network. And so we thought she would be the perfect one to lift up a couple of stories from the bus. She's a little weary, but she looks pretty good for however many days on the bus. Mary Ellen.
It has been a lot of days. But I am delighted to be here, and it's been my honor to be a part of this bus trip. And when we started it, we didn't know quite what we'd run into. But I think what we run into every step along the way is the hope that the immigrants bring to us. Early on in our trip, we met Whittian. Whittian is 31 years old. Whittian qualified for deferred action. She made it by the hair of her neck. She's literally 31, that's the cutoff date. She is protected from being deported. And in that, she somehow, before she got this protection, she was undocumented. She managed to go to school. She not only went to college, she went to graduate school. She's a master's in social work, and she works at a hospital providing care to citizens of the United States as well as other people who come to the hospital. She's right now giving back. She's been contributing her entire life, and she has got deferred action. She waits for full citizenship so that maybe her family will be able to get full citizenship as well. She told us the story of her life, and she said, "I'm the quintessential dreamer. I am exactly what the DREAM Act was made for. I've played by the rules." And it was very impressive. After we heard her story, like, she really is the perfect dreamer. But then we went to another state, and we met Ida. And Ida's done everything right. She's only 16, 17 years old. She just got her driver's license. She takes care of her parents. She drives them so that they can go to work so that they don't get picked up. She's a good person contributing to this world. She again said, "I'm the perfect dreamer." And she was. And then we met Chris. Chris went to Senator McCain's office with us. And he very humbly and simply stood before the person that we met with, and he said, "Me and my mother are really quite lovely people." And they were. And he again was the quintessential dreamer. The reality is there are millions out there who are just beautiful dreamers, ready, willing, and already contributing to our country. And this new immigration bill, which is comprehensive, will enable them to be full citizens, not just deferred action. And the other thing that I think that we need to raise up is the situation amongst our Native Americans. You don't typically think of Native American and immigration, right? After all, like we said, thank you if you're the Native American because you're the only non-immigrant in the room or non-relative of one. But they've been just as negatively impacted by bad immigration law as us. From the earliest of days, in 1790, Native Americans were made domestic foreigners. They lost citizenship. They didn't even become citizens until 1924. But today, the injustice continues for them because their tribal lands, and as most of you know, Native Americans' tribes are one family. They are very tight, and their existence depends upon them staying as one family. But they have people here and people in Mexico on their land. And the American people, or the American government, has driven a borderline through the middle of their family. And I think that that is picture perfect of what the American immigration laws right now are doing to so many families. We are drawing a line through their hearts, through their families, and they are separated arbitrarily and because we fear. Because we know, one thing we know as these dreamers, the Native Americans, and everybody else who is here contributing, your neighbors, your family, your friends. They contribute and they belong. And we need to stop fear-mongering. We need to stop drawing lines and say there's not enough for everyone. There's enough because we are all better when we are all made better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. I think picking up on that, there are just a couple of stories that I want to share. One is that when I started on this trip on the bus, I had expected people to be afraid of deportation. And it was just kind of a generic fear. But on the bus, what we've discovered is that there are a lot of different kinds of fears. Ida, that was mentioned, was so afraid that her parents would get picked up. And she says to them, "Stay at work, don't go with anybody till I come to pick you up." Now, when I was a kid, 17 years old, my parents often told me that. Don't go off with anybody else till we get there. But here she is taking care of her parents. But what I discovered in conversation with her is that she both is afraid that they'll be deported, and she also feels a bit guilty that she won't. It is a catch-22 because she's got protection, but she can't protect her family. And then I was in the visit, when they were with Senator McCain's office, I was in Senator Flake's office, and there was a 19-year-old who's gotten deferred action, and her father had been deported a couple of years ago. Her mother got deported about a year and a half ago, and she's taking care of her 11-year-old citizen twin sibling. They're her, I think, sisters. She was taking care of them, and you know what her fear was? Her fear was that she wasn't raising them well because she was too young to really know how to care for them. But she was doing the best she could. It was a fear I never thought of. Then we stopped in Dallas at the Catholic Charities, which is the biggest processing of DACA. Those are the deferred action for dreamers in the United States, and they've just gotten an award, and we got to talk to some of the new applicants. And they said one of their biggest fears, or the reason they came to Catholic Charities, was because their big fear was that they would go to someone who wasn't qualified, give them money, and never get their actual papers, because there's such an exploitation of this vulnerable population. I never knew that fear. And then the last story I'll tell is in San Antonio. It's so great to be back in Los Angeles where you have a reasonable climate, because we were in San Antonio and it had to be 175, I think, at least. And it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were doing an outdoor press event. I don't know who thought that was a great idea, but we did. And we had tents over about 250, 300 people that had gathered. But those of us on the press conference were sitting up front in the sun. But then if you go on our website, you'll see some great pictures, because what they did, they went and got umbrellas for us. And there were 2 congressmen there, Congressman Joaquin Castro and Congressman Pete Gallego. And there's a picture of Pete, for reasons I don't know. There was no wind at all, but his umbrella all of a sudden went inside out, and there's this ridiculous picture with the umbrella going up the wrong way. It's really amusing, but finally we got it worked out. But Congressman Gallego got up, and he had prepared text, and he had just flown in from El Paso, which is part of his district, because he really wanted to be a part of our event. And he's there, and his wife and son arrived, and this 8-year-old son hadn't seen his dad yet. So he runs up, grabs his dad around the waist to give him a hug, and says, "Papi, Papi." And so you can see Pete was sort of taken aback. He was going to be a congressman. He even had his jacket on. I couldn't understand how he could do that. But anyway, so he puts his papers down, and he tells us, I'm gonna go away from my script. I'm gonna tell you what's in my heart. And what he said was that his position on immigration was forever changed the moment he held his now 8-year-old, but then infant son in his arms, and he knew in that moment he would do anything to protect him. He would get him food, he'd get him shelter, he would protect him. It was very moving testimony. And then a couple of days later, when we were in outside of Tucson on the Pascua Yaqui reservation, the chairman of the Pascua Yaqui people told me after our gathering that he, not knowing the story of Pete, that he had found a woman's body under a bush, a big bush in the desert. And she was curled in a fetal position. And when they rolled her over, they found she was cradling her baby in her arm, who was dead. And I thought, you combine Pete's story, and this woman knew the same story. This is wrong, what we're doing to people. There are hungry people, and they see global television. And if you combine hungry people with the hope of an alternative, they're going to move. And so we on the bus hold, that just for me has renewed my commitment to making sure that there is comprehensive immigration reform with the same path forward. There's a lot of statistics we can talk about. We held a business roundtable in North Carolina. We're going to hold one up in Silicon Valley on Monday. But what we know is it's economic good news for the United States. One business person said it was the best economic stimulus bill that Congress could pass. The Hispanic Realtors Association has done a study that says within the next 3 years, if there is a secure path to citizenship, over 3 million undocumented households are poised to buy property, which would be a $500 billion influx into the economy. And you get the Wall Street Journal saying it's the best thing for our entitlements. So you get the Nuns agreeing with the Wall Street Journal. You get the Chamber of Commerce agreeing with the unions. You get the Republicans agreeing with some Democrats. And even as I joke, you get some bishops agreeing with the nuns. What's not to get this bill done? I'll tell you what's not to get this bill done. Politics in D.C. And the thing we have got to push on are our politicians. We, the people, need to reclaim our country. So we've got some serious actions to do here. Hopefully everybody's gotten cards, and if not, we'll pass them out. But we want to collect them tonight if possible, because we're getting to the end of our trip, and we need them when we get home. So there's 3 actions on one card. This is really cool, because we're always economical and try to do our best with all resources. Now I'll tell you, the nuns in the crowd are going to hate it because it's a low budget operation and you're going to ask you to tear them. And we couldn't afford perforating them. So what you do is you fold them back and forth a few times and they tear really easily. And what you do, the first action is to fill in your information here, and then write a little note, and we will get a copy and the original to our senators, Boxer and Feinstein. Now, they're good on this issue, but they need a volume to be able to refute the ones that are saying there are only negative statements. So we need to push back and give our senators ammunition in a non-violent, ever thoughtful, ever peaceful way. But it's ammunition, okay? So this is the first task. Task 1. As you're doing it, you might glance at our talking points on the top part. You hold on to the top part as a souvenir. I say keep it in your pocket, keep it in your purse, and use it for missionary work in the Safeway grocery store line or wherever you are. Because we, the people of the United States, have got to talk politics. We have got to talk to each other and find a way forward. Now, some of you may have relatives like my brother Jim. So my new theory is we should swap relatives. I'll talk to your equivalent, you talk to mine. It'll just be better for all of us. But everybody needs to talk to somebody, right? Okay, so we have to reclaim our nation and we have to speak up. So these are the talking points. You give us the card, that's 1. You use the talking points, that's 2. Now the third one you're not going to expect. I think this is really fun. I forgot my prop on this one, but if you look in this, oh, thank you, Gail, so kind. Everybody needs a smartphone or a semi-smartphone for texting, right? Everybody's got it, a semi-smartphone, a smartphone that can text. If you have a text phone, what I say is that all you need is a smartphone with a semi-smart operator. But if you take it out and go to texting, get to your text screen, okay? So you get to your text screen, and in the number, where it says sender, mine says sender, you put in the number 877-877. 877-877. And it's in green on the design of our bus up here, but you need bifocals to see it. So it's 877-877. O ustedes pueden hacerlo en español también. Ustedes pueden marcar 877-877. Y en la línea para el mensaje escribe en español hermanas con H. Hermanas. Okay, in English you want to write nuns, N-U-N-S, and send it off. And through the magic of this system, which boggles my mind, you'll get a text back from me. It'll ask, or text back asking for your zip code and your email to verify you're a real person. Then you'll get a text back with a number to call. That number will get you linked to our senators so that you can register your voice. Because registering your voice, actually talking, usually leaving a voicemail message with your name, where you live, and that you're for immigration reform is like 10 emails. Okay? So 3 things, all on one card. How efficient, how budget friendly. The card, the talking points, and text. All right? Easy. And we need it. We need to reclaim our nation. Now I'm going to invite my sisters on the bus to come. Sister Diane's going to join us, so there'll be 10 of us. And we're going to practice using our voices. This is why our bus looks the way it does. There's a step over here. Just be careful. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate, I sort of call it our rocket or chorus line approach. And we're going to do it for you. And then everyone gets to do it with us because we're just going to demonstrate and then it's participatory activity. Got it? So this is our message that we give every place. We all hear? All of it? Come on, there's room for everybody. Got it? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands, raise your voice, for comprehensive immigration reform now! Okay, now, that was just a demonstration. It was fairly quiet. I didn't even see any of these little balls move up here. So what we've been told is if you do it 3 times, you remember it. If you do it 7 times, you actually believe it. So we're going to do it 3 times so you remember it. And then we will give you homework tonight, because after all, many of my sisters have taught school. So tonight before you go to bed, you have to do it 4 more times. So you actually get it in your bones. So are you ready? Put stuff down. Come on. All right, you ready? Everybody ready? Ready to do this? Si se puede, podemos hacerlo sin problemas. English as a second language. Okay, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands, raise your voice for comprehensive immigration reform now. Well, that was pretty good, but we got 2 more times to get it in, all right? Let's see. Maybe stand up for this one. We got to get into it. Okay, stand up.
If you can.
If you can. Si se puede, si se puede. Okay, if you can. Oops. All right. 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands. Raise your voice for comprehensive immigration reform now. All right, now let it sink into your bones. Let it be a part of your spirit. Let's do it one last time. Let's get all these balls dancing. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands. Raise your voice for comprehensive immigration reform now. All right, California. You can do it. All right. Thank you so much.